You're listening to Greater Good Radio Hawaii. Please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. Today's guest is DUANE Kurisu, the true epitome of a social entrepreneur. He has ownership in over 12 businesses, but his true passion is helping the community.
It's almost like using leverage, right? Because you have a bunch of people sitting there, and then they can make things for you while they're there. They paid a ticket too,
That's right.
and then you take their, what they made, and you give it away.
There we go.
Right?
Yeah.
So, when I'm talking about leverage, when we first had met and we sat in that meeting, and what I really wanted to know was how can I make more money? But what I left the meeting thinking was how can I do more good for the community in 1 hour meeting. The first thing that we went through was leverage, and we talked about sponsorships. Scholarships, sorry. And what we talked about was I said, what if we take, this kid and we help them with a scholarship and do this and I take 10 grand and, we give them a $10,000 scholarship. And he said, no. That's the wrong way to think about it. You got to use leverage. I was like, what is that? And he said, you got to use leverage. I have a Hawaii Sports Network Foundation. We get these kids scholarships, let's say a $100,000 full ride scholarship. But the way we do that is I fund a staff position, at a few $1,000s a month or whatever it may be, but they give me $100,000. So that, my dollar is, 30, 50 times more than what I would have gotten out of it just giving it straight to that person.
Oh, is that what leverage is? Well, actually, I recall that conversation, and basically, I think what we figured was it cost maybe $3,000 to $5,000 per child in direct costs to help them. Actually, what we're functioning as a marketing tool, I guess you can call it college counselor for children in Hawaii with schools, and our objective was to get at least 3 offers from schools, and we would negotiate with the different schools to get the scholarship dollars. Actually, what Doris Sullivan used to do this for us, so and she's an expert at this. So what Doris would do first is find out how much free money she could get for the kids, and then knowing from federal agencies or whatever, and so once she knows what that amount was, she'd go out and get at least three different offers from schools, and the objective was to get these children to get to go to school for free. So your term was leverage. I don't know if so is for $5,000 per child. The child would actually end up with a full ride for 4 years. So if you take $40,000 a year times 4 years is $160,000.
Mm-hmm. But even if you take leverage a step further and you say this child now got that opportunity because somebody helped them out, and if they feel that type of gratitude that they're going to turn over and do the same for someone else, it would only take one person to put a program together, and you have a massive amount of leverage, and you keep going over and over and over again, kind of like the snowball that rolls down the hill.
Well,
right?
That's my hope, and that's our investment in humanity. Thinking that after these kids graduate and end up working, that they'll do that for somebody else.
True. So the second thing that we went over in that meeting was, you said this is the main secret for you, and I said, okay, I'm ready. And you told me I don't do anything unless it helps the community. And I was still ready for the secret. I said, okay, I'm ready for the secret. And he said, no. I don't do anything unless it benefits the community. And I was totally thrown off because my thought was I do my business and I do my community things, and they're separate. They don't mix. And after I do my business stuff, maybe I can do community things. But your thought was completely different on that. Can you give us some examples of that?
I think first it starts with the employees. And people ask what AIO is. And AIO actually represents life. And I use the word life to interchange with the word aloha. And aloha is a word that a lot of times I try not to use because it gets misconstrued. The depth and breadth of its meaning to me is so significant that it would be misunderstood. So I say AIO represents life, and the objective is for each employee to discover within himself or herself what his life is all about, to to discover that he or she is totally responsible for everything that happens inside and around him. So in that sense, it really empowers that person to truly become what he or she can dream about becoming. I know it sounds willy-nilly, but we actually have certain programs putting into our company that helps to encourage these things to take place. So one is, I would say, we call My Life. So each supervisor goes and talks to the employee to find out what is the employee's vision 5 years from now. And it's okay if that vision is outside of the company. So first, there's this trust building for the employee to really reveal what he or she feels. And a lot of times it's a self-discovery for the employees. I mean, it's like, if a mother thinking, well, I just want to make sure I go home and feed my children. And then, but for them to think that, I got to think 5 years and for myself. It's a really good tool for introspection. It forces this whole notion about discovering what life is about, which is so. We start with that as a base, and then we have another program. Every employee has their normal vacation, but you can take an additional week, provided that week is solely about discovering something new about yourself or for yourself. Some employees end up doing things solely for, like developing a personal skill, where others have gone out and reached out into a community because that's what they felt they've always wanted to do. Like, spend a week volunteering I'm just making this up now, volunteering and feeding underprivileged children. So when you talk about leverage, I kind of see that as leverage too, leverage with the employees, because my true satisfaction is the success of each. I mean, when I say each, I really mean each of our employees.
Thanks for joining us today on Greater Good Radio. For more information or a transcript of today's show, please visit us online at greatergoodradio.com. This is your host, Evan Leong and Carrie Leong, saying please join us next time for another episode of Greater Good Radio, Hawaii.